It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we continue the summer series today and cover the latest property news every morning on iHeartRadio, Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcast from. January the 4th today, and I trust that your holiday break is an enjoyable, relaxing one and stress-free, even if it's just temporary. And if you are out on those roads travelling today, just take it easy. Always a lot of craziness around this time of the year. Well, coming up this morning, once again, we are in Perth with our podcast series, Buying Perth Property. And people in 2024 this year will continue to do exactly that. And Matthew Hughes, the founder and managing director of Capital Property Advisory, is joining us. And a very good morning, Matthew. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast and to 2024, mate.
Yeah, it's crept up on us. Happy New Year, mate. Good to be with you in 2024. Hope you had a good break.
Yeah, certainly have, and it seems odd that you are on holiday enjoying some of your downtime, but you have taken yourself out of your holiday mode just for a moment to talk about your beloved Perth property market.
We've had a few little trips, but we're at home at the moment with the kids, and with a 2 and a 4-year-old, taking a little break from that occasionally and spending some time with you is not a terrible thing.
Okay, yeah, good. Now, I mentioned that people will in 2024 continue to buy property in the Perth market. You are probably the envy, I'm sure, of a lot of people in the game of real estate being positioned in Perth. But not just that, like it's the lifestyle, it's the local economy, the buyer-seller sentiment is pretty strong at the moment. So there is a lot to be grateful for living in such a dynamic marketplace for 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Marketplace aside, Perth is a place that I absolutely love living in, and others are starting to see the value and are flooding in here as well. But in terms of the market, it's been a good few years post-COVID here, but certainly the last 12 months with the level of stock for us as buyers agents has been a good market, but a very challenging market, trying to find and secure good property. If you're doing it well and you're doing it with integrity and not just buying any old thing, it's actually very difficult. So we've got probably 3 people at the moment doing the same numbers that I used to do on my own, to give you an idea of the additional resources we've had to employ just to get the same job done.
Well, it's definitely positive. It's something we talked about continuously through 2023. And if you are a new listener to the Real Estate Podcast, Matthew is somebody that was with us all of last year talking about the Perth property market. He is here for a brand new year for 2024. So if you're looking to get that quality information on the Perth property market, he is your guy, and we'll come back in just a moment and do exactly that, talk more Perth property.
We talk to some of the most influential figures in the real estate industry, from leading commentators to investors to real estate principals, only on the Real Estate Podcast.
And as I mentioned, it is the 4th today for January. Certainly hope that your holiday is going well. Matthew Hughes in Perth is back with me. And Matthew, I recently read an article in the WA Business News, and it featured you. It was discussing the huge influx of East Coast investors into the Perth market and the reasons why, and it talked about over 60% of your business is now East Coast investors. So it's a lot of people. Was that article, first I should ask you, was the article accurate?
It was, yeah. We sat down with the senior journalist there at Business News, and we spoke about the market in general, but she also asked for some more anecdotal data on how many East Coast investors we were dealing with and what a percentage of our business that was. And it's certainly increased a lot over the last few years and now is hovering just above 60% of what we do. We've seen investors a few years ago, they were less than 10% of the overall pie. Now they're over 30%. And I think a big proportion of that is East Coast investors. So it's been an interesting time having to adjust our policies and procedures and how we operate with our buyers who used to be on the ground with us typically, who are now remote and need access to information via different means. So last year we were doing a lot with video walkthroughs with commentary and mapping out floor plans using our laser measure manually once we're out there if the agent didn't supply a floor plan. And then this year, I think I spoke to you about this pre-Christmas, the property management team was rolling out the 3D cameras for their inspections. And so I've grabbed one for the buyer's agency team as well. And so our interstate investors will actually receive, wherever possible, a 3D walkthrough of the property that they're looking to purchase, which is, I think that's probably makes us the only buyer's agent in WA doing that.
So that's a great technological development by the sound of it. So what factors do you think are contributing to the increasing attractiveness of Western Australia's residential sector for investors at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think it's the typical stuff we spoke about a lot last year, which is if you look at the fundamental statistics in terms of our potential for future capital growth, I think in terms of our position in the market cycle, we stack up better than all the other major capitals at the moment. Despite our record growth, I guess, over the last 2 years, we've been leading the country for growth now. But despite that growth, we're still the most affordable capital out of all of the states in Australia. So the affordability is definitely a driver for investors and for people who are coming to WA or back to WA to live. And then you couple that with high yields that are still going up. There's a lot of projections out there suggesting that rents are going to go up another 8 to 10% this year based on the undersupply that we're seeing and the excess demand that we're getting from population growth. So all those things combined are really driving a lot of investment activity here. And the fact that really none of the other capitals are ripe for investment at the moment, in my opinion. You're seeing more stock coming into the East Coast markets. You're seeing a bit of a softening in demand, and they're just going into a different part of their cycle. So we pretty much stand alone as the place to invest in Australia. As I've acknowledged my bias in the past, I will again there. But I think statistically I could back that up.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of bias. It is your city that you are extremely passionate about. And just talking about the people that are moving there, how significant has the influx of the eastern state capitals been in Western Australia's housing market in recent years?
Yeah, so we've spoken before about the population growth statistics. So we were last stat I saw, we were tracking at 2.8% per annum over the last 12 months. And we spoke also about the composition of that being more typically interstate migration rather than international. So in terms of people that are moving here and buying, that we're seeing a lot of that from the East Coast, partly due to affordability reasons, partly I think due to post-COVID. I think people who are previously living in WA have a tendency to want to come back, especially if you went through an elongated lockdown in somewhere like Melbourne. And then you've got the influx of capital from the East Coast investors, which we've just spoken about. So overall, the number of investors has tripled here in WA, and it's continuing to grow. And I think the next move that we might see from the RBA could be a softening in rates. I'm not suggesting that will be any time in the next few months, but I think in the next 6 to 9 months, you'll start to see more of that rhetoric. And that's just going to add more confidence to the market if we know that we've reached a terminal rate and there's potentially a softening around the corner. And if our market is still tracking like it is, it could add more fuel to the fire here, which is a good thing if you own property already, but it's going to make the job of buying or finding a rental even harder again, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been a talking point for sure over the last 12 months, the rental situation. And as you mentioned earlier, that is only set to continue. So what are the current trends in WA's rental vacancy rate and property listings, and how do they compare to, we talk about this normalised market?
Yeah, so the normalised market, I guess, or the reference point for a balanced market is a vacancy rate of about 3, maybe 3.5% here in Perth, and about 13,000 property listings. We're sitting at 0.7% vacancy rate. The 40-year low was 0.6, and that was about 6 months ago. And then in terms of the number of listings that we've got on the market, with 13,000 being the benchmark, we're sitting below 5,000 still. I'm ignoring those stats over Christmas because obviously people aren't listing and the listing numbers will dry up. But pre-Christmas, it had already dropped to in late November 47.75. So we're still chronically undersupplied, and that indicates a tight market with really high demand. We've recently seen, in positive news, I guess, we've recently seen an uptick in vacant land sales. That will be a combination of local builders, home builders, and I think there's quite a few investors who are tipping into the market and looking at house and land as an investment option. Not something that we would approve of at all, but it is happening. And that's the first positive sign in that space for some time, along with an uptick in the dwelling approvals for the first time in a very long time as well. We saw pre-Christmas that jumped up about 10 or 15%, and that was the first move in that direction for some time, but still just a drop in the ocean in terms of what we need.
We are talking about the Perth property market, and let me ask you about the impact. What impact does the foreign buyers surcharge have on WA's property market, particularly in the context, I guess, of apartment developments?
It was introduced back in 2019 by our former treasurer and was pitched as a revenue generator. I think the math might have been done on the fact that if we maintain the same level of foreign investment and charge them more, we will make more money, which is obviously not sound math, because obviously if you start to disincentivize people to purchase here, those numbers are going to drop, and it actually costs the government money. So it did the opposite of what they'd set out to do. Unfortunately, the additional duty for foreign buyers is still there. They're having to pay about 12% instead of 5%. So that's certainly acting as a deterrent on any offshore investment into our market, particularly in the apartment sector. In Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, when you've got an apartment complex that's trying to get out of the ground, they typically have to pre-sell a certain number of properties to get some debt coverage. And often interstate or international investors are a big part of that. And we just don't have that contingent here in WA because of that additional duty. So I think most industry experts agree that eliminating this levy will help bolster supply and attract more foreign investment. And given we need more stock, it seems like a logical decision. But unfortunately, logic's not the thing that the government is known for historically.
All right then, Matthew. Well, once again, that is a lot of information for people looking to the Perth property market. I'm going to let you get back to the lazy chair on the beach, wherever you are enjoying your vantage point, and we will talk again next month.
Thanks for taking time out of your holiday, Craig. Enjoy the rest of your break.
Gain insights with exclusive conversations from real estate professionals about buying, selling and investing across Australia.
Talk about some of the prevalent mistakes made by some of these first home buyers and how they can potentially steer clear of these mistakes.
Look, some of the most common mistakes, and they're pretty consistent, is a lot of first home buyers, for example, don't understand all of the first home buyer benefits on offer. A lot of first home buyers, for example, don't know the difference between buying with a private treaty, where there's a set price, and buying at an auction. The other thing is understanding the selling agent is working for the seller. There's buyer's agents that can help you purchase. There's different aspects of the property in terms of resale values to think about. There's a lot to consider, so don't let your emotions get the better of you.
Ready to step up your property knowledge? Access powerful insights with us. We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.